Give me a moment. There, we are now recording. All right, welcome everyone. This is a training I've been really excited about, and I really appreciate Kellan stepping up to offer it. We spend a lot of time as coaches thinking about how we are going to coach ultimate, but we also know that youth sports is so much more than that. It's a development opportunity that I think is often missed because we're so busy scrambling with logistics. So I really appreciate that Kellan has taken the time to address a really big part of an often missed development opportunity, the developing leadership in young leaders, especially. I have never met Kellan in person, I don't think, maybe at YCC, but if you don't know Kellan or Kellan's online presence, definitely give them a follow. And I want to say that I really appreciate the approach and the transparency that they brought to their recovery process. I will say it actually looks more like growth than recovery, and I appreciate how it's been a really big. It's been a great follow, and all the leadership that Kellan's brought in other places too. But that, if nothing else, follow them on Twitter. I'm going to hand it over to you and mute myself.
Awesome. Yeah, so I guess I'll start off with apologies in advance. I do have a dog in addition to the 2 cats that are with me into this room. And he is rather large. So if you hear barking, I'm sorry. Could happen. So I guess we can start off with doing introductions for everyone that is here. Because I'm not super familiar with everyone else on this call. So I think let's do obviously name, pronouns, where you're from, what age levels your age level or levels you're coaching currently / hope to coach, and then let's wrap it up with a one-word check-in on how we're doing today. Anybody like to go first? And then pass it to the next person when you're done.
Sure, I'll go since I like efficiency in these introductions. I'm Strat. I'm the youth director in Washington, D.C. I forget all of the prompts, one-word check-in. I'm feeling very productive. We're quickly pivoting to virtual engagement, so we're getting a lot off the ground, and I work with all ages and coaches, and I want to learn how to develop leadership, especially in our girl, female identifying, non-binary players, teenagers in our area. Developing leadership. I don't know if I said that. Yeah. I'll pass it to Miriam.
Hello, I'm Miriam. I'm living in Somerville, Massachusetts. I coach in the Buddha program here in Boston in the youth program, and I'm the head coach for the Lexington U8 and U14 girls team. And I guess for right now I'm good. I had a nice run in the misty rain that we've had all week this week, and it was very relaxing and refreshing. And I will pass it to Ming.
Hi, my name is Ming, and I am in the Philadelphia suburbs. I coach in the youth division of the Frisbee Association here, which is PATA. And I also coach at my local high school. I coach the JV boys team. We have a pretty successful program here. It's kind of interesting because we have 2 women coaching the boys teams and we have 2 men coaching the women's teams. So we have an interesting divide, and we cover for each other as well because not every person can make it to every event and stuff like that. So so I'm dealing with everything from, we have youth programs that start in 10 and over, and high school league here is the Philadelphia High School Ultimate Education League, FUEL. and she, her, and I will pass it to Butter. Hi, Patrick.
Hey, I'm Patrick. He, him pronouns. Ming is familiar with my college nickname. I coach in Philadelphia, youth, college, club people. Feeling grateful today. I had a misty rain run as well, and I am excited to hear from Kellan and appreciate Disc Northwest and everyone that's kind of putting on opportunities like this for people to connect and learn. I will pass to Bethany.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Bethany, she, her. I am from upstate New York, north of Albany, New York. And I've played in Western New York as well. I coached college last year. I'm not currently coaching, but I'm looking forward to getting involved with more youth opportunity in the Albany area. We do have a YCC team out of here that's relatively young, so still a lot to learn. I forget what the rest of the prompts are. If there are any, I will pass it to Mina.
Hey, I'm Mina. I am also in the DC area, coach middle schoolers and under 17 YCC teams. And I just came from yelling at my kids, so that's the space I'm in right now. Is there anyone else? Or I'm the last one. Oh, Jude.
I think I'm the last one. I'm Jude, he, him, from Seattle. I am supposed to be coaching middle school right now, but I'm not coaching anything. And looking forward to coaching a young, look out, up and coming club team in the men's division this summer, if we ever get a summer. And one word check-in. I'm feeling a little like kind of hyper. I don't know why. I'm gonna see a lot of movement from me today. Sorry.
All right, thanks everyone. So I am gonna do a longer introduction on this topic, like on me, because I think a lot of what I've kind of like my experiences playing Ultimate, coaching Ultimate, captaining, et cetera, have kind of led me into this passion. So let me see, I'm gonna try and do the screen sharing thing and it should work. All right. Okay, looks like the screen sharing is working. Okay, so developing leadership, I'm gonna start with the thing that Ultimate players usually start with, which is kind of what they've done as far as playing. So I guess I started playing back in high school. I started sophomore year of high school in Cincinnati. Oh, good, my cat is helping with this. So I started sophomore year of high school playing mixed, because for the Cincinnati leagues in high school, mixed was the only thing that we had, actually up until this spring. And I was so excited to finally have a girls' league for the first time, and then it didn't happen, which is whatever. So, and then I played on our girls YCC team for a couple of years in high school as well. After high school, I went to the University of Cincinnati because money made that like the realistic option. And I played there for all the 5 years that I was there. I was in a mechanical engineering program, which has required co-ops. So our program lasts for 5 years just for the bachelor's. After I got too old for YCCs, I went and played with Steamboat from 2013 to 2016, including, I think I was on the roster. I was playing on the roster the first time that we made it to nationals. The second time we made it to nationals, I had a concussion the entire summer. I was playing just long enough to get rostered, so that was super fun. After that, I started a women's team in Cincinnati called Sparks, because the other women's team in the area didn't believe in practicing, which is not something I vibe with. And then I tore my ACL and that kind of died. I also played with Indianapolis Red for the first 2 years that it existed. And then, well, let's see. Okay, so the first year I played normally kind of before the PUL existed. Last year I rostered, made it through all the practices, and then tore my ACL and meniscus in the first point that I was playing in our first game of the season. Let's go. So that's kind of my playing background. Hopefully at some point this year I will be back to playing because I super miss it. So that's kind of what I've done with playing. As far as other experiences and kind of leading me into the reasons that I care about leadership a whole lot, actually start with some more non-related ultimate things. So at the University of Cincinnati, I was part of the University Honors Program. And some schools, the honors program just means that like you get to take special classes or whatever. At UC, it's actually really experience driven. So we focus a lot more on participating in experiences and then reflecting and kind of documenting and then moving forward and learning from them. So I did a whole bunch of stuff with that, including helping out. This is a picture from one of the freshman welcome retreats that I was at. So this one was actually from my senior year when I was one of the coordinators for the whole retreat. So it was me and 4 other seniors who kind of put the entire retreat together for 150 incoming freshmen for a couple of days. And I was also, for a couple of years with that, I was a small group leader, which was just, it's so fascinating to interact with college freshmen all the time. And you definitely learn a lot. One of the other things that program helped me do, I got to go to the Leadership Institute over one of my winter breaks, which is you spent just 5 days like really digging down into what leadership is for you, kind of different aspects about leadership, how you build them together, and then a little bit on how to work with other people based on those. What else? I also had a bad habit of ending up in charge of kind of whatever I was doing. So for a few years, I was on the board for the American Society of Mechanical Engineers at our school. And then my senior year, I ended up being the president of it. So kind of running the gamut on types of leadership things that you can do at school that are not ultimate. And because that wasn't enough. So I was at UC for 5 years. For 4 out of those 5 years, I was captain. And for most of those, I was also coaching because we couldn't really find a stable coach. Like we just never developed a stable coaching relationship with anybody in Cincinnati, which is historically not a great city for club players giving back to high school and college teams, which is unfortunate, something I'm working on. So I captained that for 4 years. I also captained Sparks for both the years that it existed. For Indy Red, a little bit more off the field, but with Indy Red, last year I was one of the 2 team managers and responsible for basically doing the digital side of things. So website, but then also all of our social media and getting everybody plugged in and on board with kind of our vision as a whole, and getting everybody to, so promoting stuff and all that. And then last year, what is the next thing? Okay, what else? I coach this, sorry, lots of pictures. I've been coaching high school for 4 years, almost, I think. So I coached for Moeller and Mount Notre Dame, which was 2 single gender schools that combined into a mixed team last year. This year I've been coaching with Wyoming High School. I was an assistant coach for the U20 girls team Bell for a couple of years. And then last summer, I actually got the opportunity to become the head coach for that program and bring on 2 other assistant coaches with me, which was super fun. And then the last thing, this is really long, but I promise this all like adds together. For the state of Ohio, I'm the girls state outreach coordinator. So I also work a lot with GUM in that capacity. And part of the reason and kind of the way that I put this talk together, GUM is partnering with Without Limits to put out a high school resource manual similar to the ones that we have for like girls' college programs. We're developing one for high school players. And I wrote an article about leadership for that guide, which is coming out eventually. It was supposed to come out a while ago. There have been some delays, but it'll be out soon. And a lot like, so this presentation is kind of the coaching side of what I have in that article, which is geared towards the high school players themselves. All right. So before I start talking about leadership, we're going to do a breakout. And I think let's just do, Jude, are you setting up the breakouts? Can we do 2 of them? 2 breakout rooms? All right. So the first thing that I like to do when talking about this is kind of see where everybody's coming from in terms of leadership. So we'll send you into breakout rooms. You're going to have 5 minutes and just list like a few of the first things that you're thinking about when you hear the word leaderships. And then think about on your teams, how many of your players, like at any given time, do you think usually have those attributes? And then in your small groups, kind of discuss trends. So like similarities, differences in your groups, and then we'll come back and talk about it. Your breakout sessions, right? So as a coach, you can also help demonstrate the importance of questions, which can be as simple as if you're explaining something, check in with your other coaches to see if you miss anything. Like, hey, I think that's it, but like, do you have anything to add? Or did I miss something? And you can also ask, what did I mean when I wrote this bullet point? Ask players questions after a drill or a game. I think this is basically just checking in with them. Like, hey, did that feel okay? Is there something that you would want to do differently? Or do you think there's is there anything like that you would like to change in that drill to make it feel better or to make it feel more natural, or to make it more fun? Right. So checking in with them and continuing to ask for their feedback and their opinions. Yeah. So I think that's it on those ones. Yeah. All right. So directive leadership. So this is like this stereotypical leadership. These people are usually going to be your captains. I cannot get over this music video, and I'm not sorry. If you haven't watched Taylor Swift's The Man music video, do it. So this is usually where, and I wrote in my GUM article a lot about how this is kind of where like the usual suspects for leadership come from. So this would be like, examples would be like people, like players leading warm-ups or making decisions on the field or calling out end zones plays, that type of stuff, right? So when these players are doing their job well, they can make our lives as coaches easier, because we can kind of start to share pieces of our responsibilities with them. So like with the high school teams that I coach, I almost always work with my captains to make sure that they're comfortable calling the strategy for every line that they're playing on. Right. This was a really good thing for me over the summer when I was on crutches and didn't have to go out to the line every single time. Right. So coaches are responsible for putting 7 players on the line. And then the players are responsible for figuring out what they want to do. And if things are not working as expected, then like coaches will check in with them after the fact, but giving those players the opportunity to call things for themselves. Yeah. So how do we develop these leaders? So I have this split into 2 sections because this one's a little bit harder. So there's a further developing ones that you already have, and then I also have some tips on kind of helping to create new ones. So for the people who already are kind of demonstrating some of these behaviors, one thing to always check in on is if there's any new responsibilities you can give them. Like, is there some little piece of practice even that as a coach you can give to them and say, like, if you do, like, I'm not saying you should, but if you do the same warm-up drill every time, instead of like being the, like having the coach introduce it, like have a player on your team be the one to introduce that, or have them demonstrate a drill. That might be on the next one too. But like, or if you as a coach lead the warm-up, see if there's a player who you can work with who feels comfortable leading the warm-up. Those types of things. Feedback. So this, I've talked a lot about checking in with your players, right? Which is big. But feedback, meaning like, as far as like check in with them as far as to see what they think that they're doing well. And then also kind of based on that, what you think they might or may not be doing well, or what like some opportunity areas for them could be. And this is probably not as applicable for younger players. But I also, for my high schoolers, I also like to include them in like strategy and tone setting discussions. So like, as we're trying to figure out what like may or may not be working, or what we want to accomplish over the course of a weekend, and they don't always have a whole lot to say, but I at least always like to check in with them, right? As far as like, what do you think we should be focusing on? And then sometimes they stare blankly at me and I provide suggestions, right? And then we kind of talk it out from there to see if they think that does or does not fit with what they want the team to look like and what they want the team to feel like. So as far as kind of starting to create new ones, one thing that is pretty easy to do, that kind of helps with this directive leadership, I feel like these players a lot of times evolve from people who lead by example. So kind of an easy lead in to kind of converting them over to this is to have them help with demonstrations, right? So if you like are always asking a certain set of people to help with demonstrations, great, it's awesome that you have a core of people that will do that. But an easy way to bring in new players is kind of the ones that your other players are looking up to, is to have them help with demonstrations, right? So if you're demonstrating a drill, right, maybe have the player that you're working on, have them like go make that cut, or have them try and make that throw, depending on the drill and their skill level and that type of thing, because it kind of puts them in front of other players a little bit more. Yeah, have them lead a discussion on a question that they asked you. So if like you're in a scrimmage at practice or in a game, and a player comes up to you off the field and asks you like a really good question, during your next huddle, you can ask them to repeat their question out loud, and then have like either then you can answer it in front of the whole team, or your team can have a discussion about it, right? But it lets the rest of the team know that they're thinking about it, and it kind of helps ease them more into that role where they're talking just a little bit more in front of the rest of the team. And the last thing I have is check in on their interests, right? And I talked a little bit about this with the participative leadership style, as far as kind of finding what motivates them. It's a similar thing with developing this. So like, figure if there's like a certain aspect, if you like have somebody that you're trying to develop for whatever reason, check to see what they want to, like what they're interested in helping with, right? Because maybe they aren't helpful, like they don't really want to help with the demonstration because they get super nervous or whatever when they're doing things with a disc. But if they're really comfortable maybe helping to explain the question that they asked, they can do that instead. Or if they just want to lead a warm-up, maybe you rotate the warm-up around, right? Yeah, so those are the tips that I have for that. And really that's it. Those are the top ideas that I came up with. Yeah. Oh, I did that in an appropriate amount of time. Great. Are there any questions, thoughts, comments? Hopefully not concerns. I can stop sharing now.
I have a general question. I have a situation where we have kids who are leaders of a not good sort. In other words, the class clowns, the hot shots, the I can huck it a mile kid. You know, how do you counteract that kind of popularity leadership? when, you know, they're not modeling what I want in general. I mean,
Yeah.
not that they're bad kids or anything, you know, yada, yada. I'm just, it's almost like, how do you squash the natural leadership?
Yeah. That is an excellent question. And those, yeah, such a good question.
I'm glad I'm not being an idiot.
Oh no, this is coaching mixed teams. Listen, there's always a group of these players.
Right.
Every time.
There's a kid like this in every group, right?
Every group. Yeah. Yeah, I think there have been some other discussions that have come up, but basically I think one of the things that stuck with me most was it? I'm trying to think back. I also struggle with these players in case that's not obvious. I think if it's someone who has been playing for a little bit longer, if they're like talking during a drill, I think or talking like while you're explaining something, I think somebody else in one of these sessions brought up like have them try to explain whatever concept you're trying to talk about, right? If they're talking, they must have the answers. And depending on the age or your relationship with that kid, you could even frame it like that. Right. Yeah. Or I think you can try it. Whose session talked about this? Do you remember who talked about this? There have been so many. I have so many notes.
Yeah, they all kind of blur together like the days right now.
Talked about what specifically?
Like dealing with the big, like kind of like the troublemakers, like the kids who are like instigating behaviors that are not great.
I think that might have been in Danny and Ari's session, which I ended up not recording. Unfortunately, the recording didn't work, so I can't even go back and reflect on it.
And Positive Coaching Alliance, I think, has a lot of helpful tips on that.
Yeah, Positive Coaching Alliance, I think, talks a lot about heading off the behaviors.
Yeah, I mean, I've asked them to help explain drills and things like that. The only problem with that is that, you know, if you say that to people that are, you know, sort of naturally boisterous and whatever, it kind of shuts down the other kids. You know, you don't want them not to be afraid to ask or afraid to talk, because, you know, you do want that, right? So it's just a balancing act sometimes.
Yeah. Anything else?
I think you did a great job of kind of reframing what leaders look like. What do you do if you see somebody on your team who you think maybe hasn't manifested any of those sort of natural leadership capabilities, but you'd like to encourage them in an area of growth like that? Like, how do you, without putting them on the spot, like I have some folks who I don't think that they are even comfortable in that area, but I'd like to help them sort of ease toward that comfort.
Yeah. I think for me, this is funny because I think in a group yesterday I said that I didn't like small talk. Having conversations about even just starting with what they want to get better at. And if that's a skill, then maybe you figure out kind of how to work with them on that skill a little bit more. Or starting to build more of a relationship with those players, whether like, even if it's staying like after practice for 5 minutes, like, hey, you want to work on that throw? Let's get some reps in on that now. Or if they want to like work on reading a disc, maybe you're the one throwing it. And I think, yeah, basically just building relationships and getting more face time, helping them know you better. And I think hopefully that helps them feel more comfortable opening up to you. I come off in person as fairly intimidating, and I think for like the first, like, my players didn't realize they could like really talk to me until like a couple of months, and like until we were at YCCs, which is not great. So I'm trying to get better at that, and be more approachable. But trying to figure out how to build those relationships with other players, I think is the best start in helping them. If they don't have ideas on what they want to get better at, that maybe providing some suggestions to them, whether it's a skill or whether it's some sort of like, maybe they need to talk better on the sideline, like give them something on the sideline that they can focus on too, and help them learn to use their voice more in that capacity first. Strat, what's up?
My question, as a young coach, I was really bad at responding to questions because a lot of times I didn't have the answer, and maybe I wasn't as good at acknowledging that ignorance. I've gotten a lot better and more humble now. But how would you respond, especially to players? And now I'm thinking back on it, maybe they were trying to be leaders, but in the college setting, especially liberal arts college, it was like a competition for who could ask the best, most creative question. And that was challenging. How I mean, and you gave the example of like, oh, but what about this scenario? What about this scenario? How do you respond to that? And, you know, how do you kind of encourage leadership, but then keep practice moving?
Yeah. So usually if they're like asking a whole series of questions or like a whole bunch of questions that end up being related, I'll try to talk a little bit about, like, if they ask for like 5 different things, but they're all like a little bit linked, I'll usually try to like address the first 1 or 2, and then just like help them realize that the best way for them to figure it out, like, there are a million possible scenarios that can happen in any given play, right? So we're going to talk about these one, like, I'll prioritize, like, this one is going to happen the most often, so we're going to talk about that now, and this other one happens kind of a lot too, so we'll talk about that. And then like maybe everything else just matters less because the odds of somebody throwing a 50-yard hammer are like way lower than somebody throwing a forehand to the open side. And like those, I think, prioritizing kind of the relevance of the questions, acknowledging that they're really good questions, because some of the scenarios that players come up with are wild. So acknowledging their questions, and then trying to convince them to like whatever it is, like just have them try it out first. And if that question is still a question, like after you're doing it for like whatever amount of time, maybe you follow up with them like later after they've had a chance to get some reps in. Right. Anything else?
I guess you were very thorough.
Yeah. Oh, I can, hang on. I put my contact info up here. I'm not sharing. Wait, sorry, that's the wrong screen. Too many monitors. Cool. Jude mentioned I was on Twitter. I spend like way too much time on Instagram and Twitter. If you have more questions, follow, DM me, whatever. My email is also here if you aren't on those social medias. Cool.
Yeah. Thank you, Kellan. That was awesome. We are adding more of these next week, I think. If you have something that you want to share, you want to share some coaching wisdom with the community, please reach out. Love to host it, or reach out to your local disc org and offer to host it for them. These are great opportunities for us to collaborate. Let me know if you're going to host something. I'll spread the word through Disc Northwest social media and make sure the coaches here we have a huge coaching community here that, despite what they think, needs all of this input. If you're looking to do something, if you miss sports, we have a cool thing this evening that we've been doing. These rewatches. We're rewatching an amazing high school girls game from 2017. Honestly, one of the most bananas games I've ever had that opportunity to watch. And we have two athletes that played in the game. They're now teammates at Carleton, but they played against each other in this game. It was Franklin versus Northwest in the state finals. It was awesome. It's at 7 p.m. tonight. Join it. They're going to be rewatching it and talking about their experience. So yeah, check it out. It's on our YouTube page. Otherwise, I'll see some of you next week. Wait,
Can I put a plug in? Can I put a plug in for some rewatches? WAFC is now doing our own rewatch campaign as well. We'll do the WAFC Rewind next week. It's some current UNC teammates. It was the Triangle Warhawks versus DC Rogue 2018. That'll be next Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern on the WAFC YouTube channel. So you can check out our social media for more of those. We'll be doing those every other week.
Who are the athletes?
Ella Youngs and Sydney Rader. You may have
Awesome.
heard of them. I think they both played for Team USA.
Yeah. My daughter's a huge Ella Youngs fan, by the way. So we will be watching that for sure.
Cool. Great.
She did the high school, she did the call on the high school national championship game from a couple years ago, the invite game. My daughter did. And she was like, she didn't know Ella going into that. I mean, she'd heard of her, but didn't know. And it was like, came out of that with like just the hugest fan. So that's sweet.
Awesome. More girls ultimate.
Yeah. We might have to do a rewatch of a boys game at some point, but I don't know why. All right. Thank you all. Stay safe. Have a great weekend. Wash your hands.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
for hosting these.
Thank you very much. These are great.
Awesome. I'm glad you can join us. And it's already on the YouTube page, so you can send people that way.
Oh, how do you get the link for the watch parties?
It's on our social media for sure.
Okay.
It's on it's
Your Facebook page.
It's I'm actually about to post it on our Facebook page too, but it's on
Okay.
Twitter and Instagram. So yeah, awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
You too.